Girl, I wonder where you been at. You ain't ghost like me, I don't know if you gon' get back. Shit, you was always at a level headed, yeah, you been at.
Alright, thank you for joining us here at the Roundtable. This is the Press Play Roundtable, put on by myself, Chillwas Radio, and SJ from 2 Cream 2 Sugar. Today, I just want to start, first off, if we can just go around the table, introduce ourselves, and just how we're affiliated with the Vancouver music scene. So myself, Chillwas Radio, I run a radio show out of Abbotsford, actually, and it goes throughout the Fraser Valley, and it's just centered around giving a platform to local artists in the Fraser Valley and Canada as well, and also abroad as well.
So I'm SJ from 2 Cream 2 Sugar. I joined on in very early 2018. We do arts and events shows within the frame of fashion, music, and art. Been doing that for, 4 years now? Yeah, apologies, 4 years now. And we're just trying to grow. That's really what we do. This is why we wanted to have this conversation, because we want to see where we can take Vancouver next.
So my name is Buck. I run Chaos Club Digital, which is a record label and management company, and we also do content creation for artists, labels, brands, among other things as well.
I'm a recording engineer here in Vancouver. I'm a co-founder of Nova Studios, and I've been an active engineer here in Vancouver for the last 15 plus years.
My name is Kultar. I go by KultarGotBounce. I'm a music producer and audio engineer, and trying to work with everybody in Vancouver. I think the list is getting smaller now. But I produce for a lot of local artists here and just make sure that the music is popping.
So I head up Opposition, which has been around for 6 years, since 2014. That's exactly when I started there. And Opposition is basically, kind of an answer to traditional labels. It's a more modern approach and more artist-friendly deals on the label and distro side. But that's not all we're limited to. We also do marketing, especially for social media and online video. And we're, connected to BBTV, where we do things like merch and apps and so on. So really our focus is kind of like diversifying revenue for artists and making it easier for them.
So I started Crescendo 1 in 2015. First, it was a music and entertainment blog, like covering and supporting the local scene and just supporting events. And then we kind of just moved to more of just the music management, events and entertainment company, where we manage like artists and producers, and then we put on events like Breakout Festival.
I'm Neha. I work at Monstercat. I'm the streaming and radio specialist with a particular focus on expanding our reach at Monstercat internationally. I'm pretty new to Vancouver, originally from Toronto, so still trying to figure out the scene. But so far it's been really great, and a lot of great people out here doing great things.
So my name is Houtan. People call me Hoot. I'm the A&R for SOCAN in Vancouver. SOCAN in a nutshell is Canada's PRO, which stands for Performing Rights Organization. We essentially license the performing rights for songwriters and producers, composers, and publishers in Canada.
My name is Jason. Everyone calls me Floetic. I'm a DJ/promoter in the city, and I also work with Safe and Sound as their marketing manager.
Hi, I'm Kristina Lao. I am the current co-vice president of MusicBC, which is our local provincial music industry association that aims to drive the economy by providing opportunities to further the careers of creatives and music industry professionals. I'm also a specialist in career and consultant in career pathways for media and entertainment, and particularly passionate about empowering and supporting the next generation of creatives, both in front of and behind the scenes.
Denise. I have two podcasts I've been doing since 2012, QueerFM. So I'm the producer and host of both shows. We talk about urban music in the city. So I'm interviewing guests weekly. I also DJ. I curate events, and
My name is Nancy Lee. AKA Witch Nancy. I do a couple things, mostly in the DIY kind of underground space realm. I'm a co-founder of Chapel Sound, which is a DIY music and arts collective since 2014. Also a co-founder for Current Feminist Electronic Art Symposium. What Current does is that we provide educational and artistic programming for women, non-binary, queer artists, and artists of color. I also run a DIY space in Chinatown, mostly interested in incubating new talent and new sounds and experimental sounds. And I do advocacy work with the city of Vancouver, advocating for better municipal support for cultural spaces and artists. And I also work as a grant coach for Creative BC as well.
My name is Jonathan Adoza. I'm, like SJ said, the second half of Two Cream, Two Sugar. We've been doing this Two Cream, Two Sugar for a while, and it's evolved from so many different stages, from leading art shows and collaborating with people like Floetic and doing music shows and everything else, to fashion, music. So we're just trying to keep on the trend and keep on the evolution and cultivation of the art scene in Vancouver by bringing cool people together and making sure we all can survive through this pandemic, right?
All right, so now that we know a little bit about each other, so I had the pleasure of actually being able to read a research essay done by a professor named Professor Sacco. It was given to me by Ali from Vancouver Art Community, and I just wanted to start with some quotes that he had about the city of Vancouver. And he wrote this essay in 2007. So, and also I think that I want to talk about is also about how the things he was seeing in 2007 and if they've changed or if they're the same today. So some of the quotes that he had, just to start off the conversation, we have, "I'm beginning to worry about too many of us thinking about ourselves, a new narcissism, if you will. Our real beauty lies in our multi-ethnic youth, who the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development tells us are amongst the best and brightest in the world. Our change must be to equip these new citizens with a new understanding and appreciation of the arts." He continues, "Vancouver seems to lack a consistent cultural identity. Vancouver is a city that constantly pretends to be some other city regarding movies, in spite of its unique ambiance, quality of life, and social ethnic diversity. A weak identity is therefore evidence of some form of structural fragility." And lastly, he says, "Vancouver does not have a cultural system of interacting actors. Instead, it has an outstanding collection of isolated players trying to make a living on their own." So that being said, keep those in your minds. And we're going to start off the conversation. And this one, we can just go around the table. It'll be like a free-for-all question here. So why do you think the music scene and community is important? And also, in what ways does it impact you on your daily life? So, Kultar, if you want to start with that.
So I actually do agree with that statement that you said. But there also are groups of people that are really trying their best to make sure that we do have our own identity. I see it all the time. There's so many artists here that have their own sound, like their own identity. But it's not going to happen overnight, you know? Like even Toronto, like their scene like just got up there, I would say probably 2015, you know? And like it's been years before that since, you know, someone's been trying, like, you know, guys like Monclare, Cardinal Official were around before. Yeah, so to an extent, yeah, I do agree with what he says, but my answer is that we're trying. But yeah, no, music is definitely important here. For some of us, it's all we have. Yeah, like I said, for some of us, it's all we have, and like, you know, we're really trying hard to, you know, put all this stuff out and just make sure the world hears us. You know? But it's one step at a time. You know?
You know, I think that personally, Vancouver kind of came up on more rock and indie music. I think right now we're starting to see other genres start to flourish. And I think a main reason behind that is the fact that people are not treating it as a rat race and trying to be the first to blow up. Instead, they're collaborating with one another. And when you start to see different creatives, musicians, start to collaborate with one another, you start to see a culture and a scene being formed. It's just really cool right now to see people kind of like uplifting and supporting one another. So that's kind of my thought on it. I would say just not to put too much pressure on trying to like force a scene or a culture. I think that's going to happen naturally, and I think we need to embrace Vancouver because we truly are a unique city, and we're going to write our own script. So I think right now we're living in a pretty exciting time for the culture of Vancouver.
I mean, I kind of agree with Hoots. I think there's a change. Like I'm early 30s, right? When I was first listening to Vancouver hip hop, like the Rascals were huge, and I feel like there was a massive movement with that generation. Like that's one generation before myself, but I think that's kind of coming back around now. And in terms of like Vancouver having no culture, I hate like hearing that, because I think the whole stigma of like Vancouver not having a culture, that's our fucking culture. Like we do things different. We're not a major city like Toronto or New York. Like I consider Vancouver a big town because everyone knows everybody. We're all in different cliques, but it's like at the end of the day, it's a small city. So it's like, I hate hearing that. It bugs me a lot when I hear that. But like I said, I agree with Hoots. Like it's coming around. You can see the younger generation, like everyone's bigging each other up, the DJs, people all working together. So I think it's trending in the right way at least.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, I think you really see how much more local music has meant to Vancouver in general in the last few years than it has in the past. Like, yeah, we always had the Rascals, we had Swollen Members, we had all these guys, and there was a good amount of support behind them. But now you see a broader, or I should say a wider audience from the city supporting local acts, which is really nice to see. So I think without that, we would still be disjointed Vancouver, where visual arts is doing its own thing, fashion is doing its own thing, music is doing its own thing. Now you're seeing all these people slowly come together to just create the best that they can, the best music, the best visuals, the best everything. Obviously, like specifically to music, like without that, we'd be stuck in like the idea of Vancouver being a tourist city where people come just to see the city rather than what's actually in the city. So I think that's what makes it most important, especially now in 2020.
Yeah, like to be honest, like before COVID, Vancouver had like the best DIY scene like in all of Canada. Like it was like, because I work in the DIY realm, and like, people in Montreal, people in Toronto, like they all knew that Vancouver had the best underground kind of culture because of all the shit that's been happening in Toronto and Montreal and all the spaces being closed. So in a sense, how the way gentrification is happening in other cities, here we have a very resilient culture, and people are just not, because it's so expensive to live in Vancouver. I feel like people here are extra resourceful and are able to figure a way out of how to create culture, in whether these spaces and things are kind of happening in small areas and house parties and studios, rented warehouses and stuff. I just think like we have such a resilient culture here, and these are the voices that are never being kind of like surveyed in these like music studies that people do in the city. And these are the voices, this is like the root of like nightlife. Like this is the reason why people, why nightlife blew up in the first place. It's a form of resistance, it's a form of like saying, fuck that. We don't want to participate in this system here. We want to be able to create queer spaces. We want to be able to create spaces for Black, Indigenous people of color. We want to be able to do things outside the realm of capitalism. So I think Vancouver, in a sense, like we have that spirit that is reflected within our DIY scene prior to COVID.
I think the scene in Vancouver, again, pre-COVID, like everyone's been echoing, was strong. It was coming from a place of like authenticity and coming from a place of like truly being creative. I know from when we started doing Two Cream, it was definitely coming from a place of our mission was to bring that artist from the underground who's been grinding just to do their art, to to really give them a platform, same platform as that person that went to Emily Carr and has the education, has the paper to say, oh, I'm allowed to be here and I'm allowed to do this. So from that scene to where it is now, from us doing art shows and being in a healthy competition with everyone else. And again, everyone's main mission is connecting community, cultivating creativity, and the end goal of getting that final shot or getting that beautiful image out to the world. I think for sure we're doing a great job. And that article definitely takes away from the less of the story that you can tell and more of the firsthand experience you have to live and do in Vancouver to understand where the scene was and where the scene is now. So
I was challenging the quote because I'd love to I've been basically doing a lot of the work, like bringing a lot of artists together so that they can meet each other and stuff like that. I heard it. I just heard at the end it came in 2007 or 2008. And yeah, just the community is like alive and vibrant and people are working together. So like I was saying also that I didn't like hearing that because I almost feel like all the work that I've done is diminished. Like there's basically nothing been done. So yeah, like that's in a nutshell, that's what I was saying.
I'm originally from Hong Kong and I moved over most recently from London. And to me, wherever you are, community is about your sense of individual belonging to something that's bigger than you. Why a musical community is important is because music literally is the soundtrack to our lives. And it allows anyone who is consuming that music to achieve a sense of whatever the person creating that music is trying to offer. So when you're building a community of music, you're building up all of the people, the experiences, the livelihoods of the people within that community. And we're moving into a borderless community right now, but in some ways we're also closing in and learning to stay with our neighbors and learning to explore our own local neighborhood community. And I think it's more important than ever for our experiences to be documented in a way that we can share it with other people, for them to see a snapshot of who this territory is today.
Well, art is important because it's a lot of people's primary outlet, emotional outlet. It gives them a sense of purpose. It keeps them busy. I'm speaking for myself. You know, my whole identity, other than being a father, is, you know, being an artist, so to speak, and being able to make music. So internally, it's important for the creator. And then I would hope on the other side that you know, art is also helping people through difficult times, whether it's a song or a movie or whatever that they like, that can get them through a dark time. So I think it's equally as important for the creators as it is for the people who take it in.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's important for a variety of reasons. I mean, one being that I think from an abstract perspective, I think music is kind of like, it's the soundtrack to our lives, or the soundtrack to a city, or the soundtrack to experiences. And so the way I look at it is, it's a reflection. It's like a tangible reflection on the times, it's a tangible reflection on what's going on, how people live, what they experience, what they go through. And I think through that reflection, it allows people that are listening to the music to be able to relate and to kind of feel like their stories are being spoken, or feel that they're heard. And then like on a macro scale, I mean, there's the whole economic perspective of it. It provides a lot of jobs and opportunities to a lot of people. It's one of the industries that have lower barriers to entry because, you know, almost anyone has an idea, and if they're serious enough to pursue that idea and express it, you know, they can make music that someone will like. And today we live in a world where there's so many different niches that your music doesn't have to be super mainstream to have an impact on people. And I think in my daily life, I can't imagine my life without it, right? Like everything I'm doing, I'm always listening to music. it's just what I look forward to. It's how I relax. It's kind of how I connect with what's going on a personal level.
Yeah, just going back to why community is so important, I believe without having a community and having allies and people to build you up, you won't progress. So I think that kind of applies to everything, including music and the community here. Being from Toronto and seeing how much pride and just respect we have for the talent coming out there and wanting to support that is something that I would love to see more from Vancouver. Not to say that there aren't people that are doing that, and there are a lot of people hustling to make Vancouver more on the radar in Canada and globally in general. And I think having a concerted effort to keep community in mind and broadening your scope of like who you reach out to and who you talk to about these things is super important.
Yeah, I think they're both important because they're kind of like constants in our lives that, you know, I mean, even just myself personally, but I think everyone can kind of feel that, you know, it makes us feel more together and like less alone, especially, you know, this last year. I feel like the more you step away from your community, the more like isolated you start to feel. And everyone kind of wants like a sense of, you know, belonging. So I think like strong community and also like things like music really help with inclusion. So yeah, so I think like both really help just bring people together.
Well, first, I listen to music every day, you know, when I'm going to the gym, when I'm waking up, when I'm in the shower. And then I just feel like being part of a community is important. So if everyone's like in the creative space, especially, like if everyone's making music in a certain area, there's no reason why all of those people shouldn't be working together. You know what I'm saying? I'm not even just talking about artists as well, like producers, creator, managers, graphic designers, photographers. I think it's important that people that are doing creative stuff like that should be working together, and then that just builds the community. That helps build the community and you know, therefore put like a community on the map.
That's a good point. Okay, so just going back into the local music scene here. So the question is, what was different 10 years ago in the local music scene? And then the second part of that is, what is the worst and best thing about the music scene / industry in today's age? And the second part was a question from, I'm an audience member. So yeah, so if you guys have, I'd say like 10 years, if you've been here for 10 years, then you could talk about it. But like, I guess in the time that you've been in Vancouver, I guess, for people. Yeah, so what was different in your eyes in the local music scene compared to now? And then what is the worst or best thing in the music scene in today's age?
Well, I've been here making music in town for over 15 years. And I guess things were broken up previously a lot more by genre. I mean, you had, you know, Swollen Members, which were the big commercial group. And a bit before that, you had Rascals. And then, you know, after that, things kind of segmented more. And then you had like the SDK white boy rap, and then you had R&B stuff going on. But it was very, not just clicky, but it was, you know, things seemed a little more separated by genre. So I think some of those genre barriers have been broken down, aside from the whole, you know, social aspect of people connecting more. And maybe that's just a sign of the times too with music, how there's a lot more genre bending. But that's one thing I've noticed, and I think that that's really cool.
I think what's obvious that applies to every local scene in every city is, of course, like digital and social media is way more prevalent. So an artist isn't as reliant on their city as once before. You know, you can really kind of grow a following in other cities across Canada or other countries or wherever before you're even your hometown. So I think that helps a lot with, you know, giving artists, especially in Vancouver, like more ways to succeed. You know, like less gatekeepers involved. You can kind of dominate the online world first. You know, kind of build a following there, and already have a demand for local shows because the local, you know, attention just comes naturally with that. If you start to, you know, grow your presence on Spotify, on Instagram, or wherever the platform may be. So I think the main thing between now and that kind of also leads to, in general, the main thing between now and 10 years ago is just more opportunities to, you know, get your music out there. On the negative side, though, So I guess that kind of answers your question too, like on the positive side. But on the negative side is there is definitely oversaturation now that there is less gatekeepers. You know, blogs are less prevalent. There's just so much music out there, and you know, it's in this digital age, you know, where content gets shorter and shorter and shorter. You know, it's almost becoming a bit more like quantity becomes just as important as quality. So that's kind of a dangerous place, but I feel like we are kind of at a good, we're getting at kind of like a good intersection of like a nice balance between the two. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes with technology and things that kind of, you know, don't take away from the quality as well, but also give you more opportunities to, you know, build an audience.
I want to know what your opinion is.
You want to know what my opinion is?
I want to know your opinion,
for sure.
Steve. Yeah.
So, I mean, my opinion, because I'm an outsider, like I grew up, like born and raised in Abbotsford, which is like an hour out of Vancouver. So my eyes were never focused on what was going on in Vancouver to begin with, just because of where I'm from. It's mainly just like a farming town. There's not much. It's like local. It's like it's like a religious farming town. So it's like there's not much going on. So the reason why we even started like everything we did and getting into music and things like that was because since there was nothing, we wanted to be the ones to create the platform, create the like some of the best like music or whatever. We just had the idea of wanting to do something instead of nothing.
So you're what's changed.
I guess if you want to put it like that, me.
There you go.
Not me personally, but like a lot of people.
It's a lot of copycats that popped up after us, for sure, though.
For sure, but like, but yeah, just trying to create something out of nothing, for lack of a better word, just because there wasn't anything that we enjoyed doing in our city besides going to like the one local pub that everyone went to. So it was like a big high school reunion every time. So like, besides going to that, it was like, you know, like what else are we gonna do? So we just locked ourselves in our bedroom and just came up with ideas, different events and stuff like that, right? So, but for me, like, so speaking locally, like in Vancouver, like I don't have much to say on the Vancouver scene because I've only lived there for like 2 years even. So it's like, I'm still an outsider really. So I feel like in that sense, what I'm seeing in the Vancouver art scene, exactly the way you said at the beginning of the conversation, Kultar, like there's a lot of people working together, coming together to eventually sort of like break that stigma of Vancouver not supporting its own people and finally working together. So I feel like, I don't know if I can comment on like worst or best thing, but like I would say that, there's a long way to go, but I feel like where we are in today's age and even having this conversation at this table is like working towards pushing the culture forward and getting the right people in front of each other and collaborating with each other and just building like a better community.
And thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you both for doing that.
So I started like right when I turned 19, as a DJ, and then I started DJing and then getting all these residencies and the ball started to snowball quickly and then started playing everywhere. And I just found as I was getting older, the more I was playing, that the nightlife scene and the music scene started to collaborate a little bit more, whereas it wasn't like only concerts and club nights. It was more like a collaboration of the two. And we found like music lovers being more engaged with it. And I know for me personally, when I started DJing, that I really wanted to take it to the next level and do my own events and book artists to like host and perform, to kind of essentially provide a platform for them to like showcase their stuff. And it wasn't just me, it was like a lot of people in the city were starting to do that. And it was just cool to start to see like the music scene start to take off as well. Because Vancouver's always been, in my opinion, like pretty solid with the nightlife scene, but it was cool to see that collaborate with the music scene here in Vancouver as well. And we're starting to see more like local artists perform at the clubs and in concerts and things like that. So I would say the answer to that would be, that'd be the answer there. We're starting to see more of a collaboration with the two and more, artists performing and stuff like that. And I find like recently there's more of a demand for it as well.
I was talking about the community a bit because I grew up in the early 90s, so watching like the Swollen Members and Rascals and do their thing. I was a teenager back then. So like community was really dope. Like you go and actually get to see the Rascals like at any of the concerts in the city. And you'd know who all of the like promoters and like all of the like DJs, you'd know everybody. So, and it was like more, I feel like it was more of a community because you know who's behind everything. It was more hands-on. And like looking forward to now, you kind of just see a logo. You don't really know who's running what, but still you do feel the community vibe, and you can like comment and get in on things online now. But back then it was more like face to face, talking to people, like tangibly holding that Swollen Members tape when it first came out. Things were like now. The Spotify lists are crazy dope. And I fell in love with radio back in the 90s too, because there was all those amazing radio DJs that were out. So like actually getting down to the station and like touching and feeling and seeing the soundboard and stuff like that was really exciting to me, just because I had access. But I know not everybody had that kind of access, but still, I feel like the community was dope, because there were spots to go to also to chill. Like if you were into the music, like at FWH, you get your clothes, you get your records, you get your whatever down on Beatty Street. That's not there anymore. But and I guess you can get records now delivered to your house, so it's a lot easier. You know what you really want. You just order it online. But yeah, just the differences in community in Vancouver. The shift did change from like the early 90s and then 2000. Like you said, there was a gap, and now yes, people are collaborating a lot more too. And radio isn't like the goal. Like you said, listening for that time, you had to be on the radio. But there was also recording it. You could like set that was my thing too, to record the show. Like if it was too late and I had to go to school in the morning, I just hit record on the thing, go to sleep, let it run, and then you get to listen to the whole show later. But yeah, there's so many differences from then to now.
There's one thing I wanted to ask you there real quick though, because I know, speaking one personally between me and Dodo, but also a bunch of other groups, I think the reason that a lot of groups tend not to want to put their faces out there anymore is that they rather put forward the brand identity than show that, oh, this person is in charge of this. Because I know a lot of times in the past that people were like, oh, this person has control of such place, blah, blah, blah. This person has, like, there was a lot associated with individuals because they were attached to a brand, versus now it's, when you look at a brand, like if you see a Two Cream logo, you kind of know what to expect, versus like looking at me or Dodo, right? Because most of the people who follow our platform follow the platform because they want to, versus looking to either of us, right? And there's a bunch of other groups that do that as well and try to stay anonymous for that reason. But also on the opposite side, and this is where I do agree with you, is that yeah, there's people who also hide behind a lot of these, like brands too. So you don't really see what faces are there. And if you have a question that's serious and you want to approach them with, like, you're talking to a freaking Instagram logo, like that's it, right? So I definitely agree on that part though. Yeah,
I definitely feel like with the internet, now there's more, it's a little bit more democratic in the sense that like people have, like anybody could host their own event and have access to a certain niche or market or audience base. And it allows for a little bit more like decentralized kind of things to happen. Whereas back in the day, like music, there was a lot of gatekeepers and it's kind of all centralized with like all the labels and stuff. Now people, self-release, like you don't have to go through that. Now we have access to equipment to make our own music, to self-release. And I think it's important to note that, because that's how we have been able to achieve, like, I feel like that's how we have been able to get more diverse people to start participating in like DJing, in like music production and things like that. With some of the projects that I work on with current Symposium, yeah, like we do like, we work with intercessions and they teach like women and non-binary and queer folks how to DJ. And just like having more accessibility to equipment nowadays kind of makes it so people, you don't have to be ballin' to or have studio access to be able to partake in this culture as like a producer, as a cultural producer. You don't always have to just be someone consuming the culture. And I think that's also important because it also makes it so people have more choice. You know, now it's like I don't have to go to events only hosted by these few people that run events. You know, I can go to events that are smaller, that are run by other people or maybe less known promoters. And I think it's really important too, because I think with the internet now we're able to, you know, like I think we can't deny that the Me Too movement, that's a big thing that has happened over like the last few years. And it's just, you know, now it's a time to hold people accountable for the shitty behavior. You know, all of the like sexual harassment shit that's been going on in the music industry and the film industry. And then with this year, with like the largest like racial justice movement in the world with BLM and everything, now we can start holding these people accountable for like their contribution to culture or not, or maybe their culture vulturing. You know, the fact that most of the fucking nightclubs and concert venues in Vancouver are owned by mostly white people profiting off Black culture, like that is something that's inequality right there. That's kind of fucked up, you know, like, and I think with the internet, we have more access to information and we can talk about this inequality and what we need to do for structural change.
I think what's really changed a lot is like the way we discover music. You can go on Spotify and they'll just recommend a playlist for you, you know, and just discover a bunch of music you never heard. Back in the day, you'd have to turn on like Much Music or like the Beat 94.5 to hear something.
Find something, yeah.
The funny story, actually, like 10 years ago, I used to DJ at a small banquet hall. And like the highlight of the night was like when we play Flow Rider, like Apple Bottom Jeans or something, right? And now, like I was at a wedding last year, and like you'll hear like Mo Bamba, like in an Indian wedding.
That's
right,
crazy.
and people are just screaming the song. So it's like the way we discovered and the way we actually accept music now has completely changed, because that would have never ran 10 years ago.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I would agree wholly.
Why do you think that changed?
I guess the consumer.
What
right?
changed?
That's what I was going to say, because...
Yeah, we changed. I think they changed us.
Yeah, exactly,
They made us, well, like, they sort of like funneled us into this new way of listening to music and like taking in information. And
who's they?
The people who run the music industry. It's not us. There's bigger people at play, I feel like.
That's what I was going to say too. I wouldn't even say, you can even narrow it down further to, honestly, probably the start was like LimeWire, Napster and all that, where the idea of music being, yes, that much more accessible, but now it's like, hey, this isn't something you necessarily need to pay for, as wrong as that is. Because 10 years ago, I could tell you, I'm only 25 years old. So when I was like 15, like maybe 20% of the people, 25% of the people that I knew actually bought music on a recurring basis.
Because you're at the age of Napster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
You were right there, right in that bang in that moment where everyone was like, "It's free!
It's free. Yeah.
Take everything!"
Yeah.
And that's the crazy part too, because you look at 10 years ago, you used to put in that much more effort as a consumer to find things that maybe that was more to your palate, to put simply, right? That you actually really, really love that much and you were really into. Maybe because you also would have been less open to perspectives and artists that you might not otherwise have checked out because you really didn't had any way to, unless you were stealing it, right? So I think now, based off actually what you just said, is that because everything is so much more accessible, like you can go online and find an artist in like the middle of Iran right now who's making incredible trap music, right? There was almost no way you could find that here in Vancouver 10 years ago, just in general, because access to it, because not being supported by a major label or on the radio or on some kind of platform or having a DJ play it meant there was almost no chance you'd be able to hear it. And now because you have that, you have this idea of people putting, because they no longer put their dollars where, for the music aspect of it, putting their dollars for this artist, now it's social media traction. It's more how much engagement you have with this artist, how much do you align yourself with this artist. And a lot of people forget that. Branding also means how much the audience attaches themselves to you and the idea of yourself. And I think 10 years ago, there was the idea of a star was this recluse you only saw aspects of every now and then, and now you open your phone, it's like you just see 24/7 like what's going on, what's happening, blah blah blah. And because of that, yes, you have a more direct way of getting your music into those hands, but now you're competing with a way wider breadth of artists to compete with. Because it's also, on a more music production note, a kid in his basement's making millions of dollars, like making beats or producing new artists or bringing out new music, compared to before, where you had that it still wasn't that high of a barrier to entry because music is universal, but there was still a certain level for you to get that voice out there more so than you can now.
I'm curious, do you consider yourself an average like music listener in terms of how you discover music?
It's hard to gauge because I was never the average listener to begin with, because I was actually somebody who I used to go and buy albums from even like internet, like major label artists, because I just thought they're deserving of the support. But now it's more so I'm not really listening to a lot of playlists. Like I'm really listening to people that I need to, because I have a backlog of probably 100 artists that I still have to take the time to listen to. Where now it's like, because of also what I do as 2 Cream 2 Sugar, like I probably spend up to a third to maybe even half my time having to go through a local album / local music. And I say have to when I really mean want to, because the music coming out of here is amazing now.
You choose to.
Right, I choose to, exactly.
But it's also your work. That's your job.
The reason I asked that is because, like, yeah, I wouldn't consider you the average listener in terms of discovering music. Like, you take the time to really find what you like. And as much as there is a lot of music out there right now, and it's more accessible for smaller artists to get on these platforms for people to discover them, it's still the Spotifys and the Apples that are curating those playlists.
Yeah.
And those are the average listeners, the ones who are being fed what the big guys are feeding them. So at the end of the day, we're still kind of, there is still more discovery of smaller acts when they get introduced into these playlists, but we're still listening to the Selena Gomez's, the Justin Biebers, that are they're viral 2 seconds after they release their music, which doesn't really make any sense because no one's heard it for that long. So I mean, I think even though there is so much more accessibility for people, they're still at the mercy of these big players, just like before. The medium has just changed.
I think that's
I will say back in the day, it was a bit harder to filter it out, because I remember when I was first coming on the scene, it was like the MySpace era, and there was no barrier to entry, but there was also no like Spotify charts. There was no play counts and stuff. So it was really hard to decipher what was good from bad. At least now you can see something is charting or, trending on some chart, or it's got a million streams. So you want to check it out. Back then it was kind of like the Wild West, and it was a kind of a free for all. So it was almost too noisy, and it was like a bunch of dudes who had just bought a sound card and started recording in their room, and it was hard to find the good stuff. So I think when the advent, I guess the blog era is when curators kind of started to come in, and you could check your favorite blog that posted songs that you like. But before that, it was a bit more dicey.
It's funny because now you see the chase used to be getting on the radio, getting on like much music, as you said. Now it's like, can I get on TikTok? Can I get on a Spotify curated playlist? Can I get on an Apple Music playlist? Can I get a new music artist panel on the Apple Music page? Like, the chase is very much different for an artist seeking growth than it was 10 years ago too, and that's...
But at least if it's good, someone can like kind of co-sign it more easily or accredit you or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a bit easier. It's a bit easier if you've truly got it, I guess. It's a bit less of a lottery.
You know what's pretty crazy though is that like the people who are curating the Spotify playlist hold so much power in their hands when it comes to the artist. Like, it's crazy. Like, there's people who like feel some type of way when they don't get added to playlists. Like, to me, it's just crazy how like it was never like that. And now it's like these people are like gatekeepers to saying what is good and what isn't.
It was like that though. They were called radio programmers.
I was just gonna say,
no, for sure.
From radio to Spotify.
Yeah.
Or playlists in general, but yeah.
Yeah. But it's true when you look at like, what was his name? Tuma Basa or whatever, when that guy's rise, you know, that guy could make or break you. And just the amount of power that got concentrated in the rap world with that one guy was insane.
Yeah.
People didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
He was probably one of the top 3 most crucial people in all of rap music for a while there.
Yeah, because if you got a rap cap, you're good.
Right.
You're good.
Yeah, dude. Back in the day, it was like, oh, I need a record deal. You know, I'm making this music so I can get a record deal. You know, but now it's like so easy to get music. You can just be like, I just want to make music so someone like actually just hears me. Just upload it to your SoundCloud and you're done. That's it. You're done being an artist for the day. You know, not everyone is like trying to chase that big record. Some people just want to be on your shower playlist, man. You know, just simple as that.
I think it opens doors for artists to survive off of their work without having to be the Justin Bieber. Someone who want a modest living, they want to do what they love, and it gives them that opportunity.
But I think that's interesting because you guys at Monstercat are really amazing with this because of the way you approached your contracts. Like a lot of those are one-offs with artists who don't need to necessarily sign recurring deals. So it's a really good aspect for them to try it out and see if it works for them. But there's also situations where, how do I put it? Like because of the numbers, if you're purely trying to make your living off of music, if you're not doing live shows or you're not doing any kind of branding deals or like promotional work for other groups or whatever have you, brands, the income from music streaming is still tiny. Even for major label artists, it's still tiny.
Oh, it
unless
sucks.
You're exactly.
It sucks.
Unless you're like the top tier, like getting hundreds of millions of streams, then yes. But at the same time, those artists also, the percentage of their income on an annual basis for that is probably like what, 10-20%, maybe less than that. So the actual aspect of making money off your music directly is way less than also, well, not way less, but considerably less than it was 10 years ago too.
I mean, the music is the product, so how you place your product, whether it's on a streaming platform or if it's in show, is still the music that you're selling, right? So it's just about constantly being creative and innovative in how you want your music to show. And it can be as simple as like having it in a workout class. So it fits really good for like spin cycle and it's being played there and people are noticing it there, you know?
You might have been...
Get it on Peloton.
Yeah, you know.
There you go. Start doing deals.
You might have been able to make more money back then, but you have to spend more too, like printing all those albums and distributing it to the stores. I think now's the only time where you can just literally download the free software, put out a song, and like put it on the Spotify for free, right? And you probably only make like whatever X amount of dollars a year, but those are all your dollars, right? It's probably not enough, but I think it's the only time where it's actually 100% like profit.
I mean, I think you guys kind of said what I was going to say, because going back to the initial question was, what's changed from 10 years to now? I mean, I think we all know technology clearly as even the playing field, as Nancy said. But yeah, I mean, I also think that artists now, maybe compared to 10 years ago, are just a little lazier because of Instagram and Twitter and all these things. You know what I mean? Like I'm not saying all, obviously I can't speak for everyone, but I know artists in the city that would be like, well, download my music or whatever, but it's like you should have a folder and just send it to everybody, whoever you want, your friends, the DJs, promoters. You should be doing the work. Like if that's still your job, or have a manager or someone in your camp or yourself that just is on it. You have a release, send the folder, send the link, right? Because as much as technology has made things easier, I think that's also part of the problem with a lot of artists. So if that's one change that I don't think was mentioned, that I feel, within the last 10 years has definitely affected.
Yeah, I see a big difference from 10 years from now is definitely the engagement, just like the ability for the consumer or the audience to really show all the love that they want to give and really like start following and growing with that artist from the city. I think echoing what everyone's been saying is technology goes both ways as well, and it's been super easy for anyone just to pick up some tech and really dive into the art. And it's also been really easy for people who aren't interested in creating, but interested in consuming, to really pick up that technology and dive into the local scene, into really whatever scene they want to get into. And I think it's that two-way street has gotten so much easier, and especially nowadays, it's just pick up your phone, type in local Vancouver artists, get top 10 lists, and then you start your adventure. So I think that's the biggest difference for me. It's easier for me to consume the art that was maybe hidden before, or just only kept underground, or only kept here. Yes, it still carries the underground feel and scene and everything else, but just being able to be consumed more is where I'm at.
I mean, I wasn't here 10 years ago, but I can even speak on like 6 years ago, like when I first moved here. I don't want to say there wasn't a music scene, because that's disrespectful to people that was here before I moved here or whatever, but no one was really talking about music artists from the city. Like,
that's facts.
It just wasn't even a conversation. Like there was no conversation about anything. Like even now, I could list you like 10, 15 producers from like Vancouver and surrounding areas. Back then, maybe I could name you one or two. You know what I'm saying? Same with artists, maybe a bit more. Like I think there's more buzz now because you have artists that are actually like making moves. So now there's more buzz about like the next one's coming up. It's like, oh, who's next or whatever. I mean, there's a few differences. Like that's one of the main differences, but like positives and negatives. Positives is that one of the main positives, which I think is people don't even like really take in that often, is that there's no beef between any artists. There's no like, we live in such a nice place that there's no like, but I don't ever think that anyone's gonna die from rapper beef, or you know what I'm saying? That happens in like so many cities, even like artists that are not big that you don't know. There's artists that are beefing in a city that we don't know, and one of them are dying or something. You know what I'm saying? That's not gonna happen here. That's not that I know of anyways. Like there's no real problems between anyone that can't get sorted with a conversation out here. Mm-hmm. That's a big positive.
Yeah, that's a huge positive. Just just think about the last month too. Like Mo3 in Texas got shot and killed. King Von in Atlanta shot and killed. Like there's definitely a huge problem just overall. And
I mean, even here in Canada, like in Toronto, rappers are dying like every other month in Toronto.
Mm-hmm. Like just to add to that, like we've never had. I mean, obviously people have like little shit here, but it always gets sorted out, right? The big thing you start to see is that the big thing you start to see is like I know people who came from Calgary who came here because they tried to flee some shit they got caught up in, right? Mm-hmm. And it's funny we're talking to Jamie too, because Jamie's worked with a lot of people just across Canada. Like you're seeing a lot of shit like that cross over from Toronto and start to bleed into the city. But like you said, it's nothing like nobody from Vancouver has a big enough issue where it's on site with somebody else in Vancouver. So like it's too much of a like everybody's like it's all love at the end of the day.
We're all just trying to make it. Everyone's just trying to prove themselves, you know. So it's like everyone's just trying to work together. And if you don't like someone, don't work with them. That's it, you know.
Exactly.
That I can't really think of any negatives, to be honest, apart from like infrastructure wise.
Yeah.
Actually, if we're gonna get into that, to be honest, because I got a list of things. One of the problems was the importance of and I don't even like the word local. I know we use that word, but I hate that word because every artist from here, their goal should be to not be local. Or if you ask any artist right now, you have a conversation with them and you just ask them their goals. None of their goals is, oh yeah, I want to be performing at this venue here on Granville, this venue there. Like that's not their goal. So I don't think we should be calling artists local.
I think one thing is the music has just gotten a lot better. And part of it is also my own ignorance that when I first came in here, like obviously not being in the industry then, I might not have known everyone that was making the music, but I think now that I'm more tapped in, the music is really good. I like objectively good, regardless of whether it's someone from Vancouver or whatever. Like sometimes I'm in studio sessions and I'm just like, wow, like this is amazing. The production is really good. The packaging of the music is really good. People have really stepped up kind of how they look at themselves and artists. And I think that's a big change that I've noticed that I think is also kind of spearheading this growth. I think there's also been a lot of platforms that have been created, you know, SJ, like yours and what you guys are doing. And there's others that, even though they may not have a huge follower base, there's a cultural impact that's there in terms of documenting what's going on, and kind of showcasing like, oh, this artist just dropped, or like, oh, this person just did a video, etc. I think that's kind of growing that Vancouver audience where people really get behind it. And now I've seen like people that are just like diehard Vancouver like rap fans, you know what I mean? Like diehard Vancouver artist fans, which I never would have imagined like 5 years ago. But it's just like the music is a lot of it, I would say, on par as like anyone else. You know what I mean? And the packaging is on par with everyone else. So that's one thing that I've noticed that I think is really dope. Also a lot more collaboration. I remember like coming in to Vancouver as an outsider, it seemed like everyone had their own crews and that was just that. But now, like, I can be in a studio session with, like, let's say KGB, and then we go to, like, Uncle Ricky's, and then it's like, oh, okay, this person's there. It's like, oh, they just made a song with this person. I was like, oh, the amount of people that I know that go to Jamie's are like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, everyone is getting more and more interconnected. And obviously, they could be more of that. But it's cool to see, and I think that's something that wasn't happening as much before.
There's actually two things there. I was just gonna say I never actually thought about it, but yeah, like I meet people now who are like super Vancouver like music fans. Like they'll list me like 10, 20, 30 artists who they just are absolutely in love with, right? Which I didn't even think about. Well, yeah, I wouldn't have really met anybody like that like 3, 4, 5 years ago. And two, like, yeah, like of course, like we're all collaborating more, but the amounts of cross collaboration that's happening in the city is insane. Like the amount of hands, like just from in general, like project releases that go into like, let's say an album release, so art, music videos, the music, the production, the mixing, the mastering, there's so much cross collaboration now and it's adding, I think, that much more value to the music and it shows in the quality too.
Yeah, like Jamie does everything, bro. Like Jamie mixes and masters like 50% of all the music I listen to.
No, honestly, like the last year, basically, like every other track that I drop on 2 Cream is like mixed by Jamie or mastered by Jamie. Even production there.
Yeah.
I'm like, man.
That's crazy. I'm tired, guys. I'm tired. No, it's so much fun. And I guess it's been cool for me to watch people step their games up because songs end up coming to me and I've just seen an evolution of the music progress. And when it gets to me, it just sounds already so good. And so, yeah, it's been a crazy evolution to watch and the output is really showing for sure.
Yeah. One thing also I'll say that I think it gets overlooked is when people think about the music industry, they think mostly in terms of the artists. But I think a lot of the people that are spearheading the collaborations, you know, people like Jamie, other producers, you know, like Azal North, Uncle Ricky, like KGB, there's a lot of dope producers that are doing good work and are also helping to facilitate those relationships of like, oh, so-and-so would sound good, or like, oh, I have a session with so-and-so, come through. And I think that's something that won't get talked about as much, even as the city grows. But I think for the people that are in it, we can really appreciate, you know, those people that are connecting the dots behind the scenes.
That's true. When you just look at those sessions and you know, I see on Kultar's or Ricky's or whatever on Instagram, and you see these 4 people in the room just working, and I'm like, that's gonna sound dope. Something as good is gonna come from that. And then 3 weeks later I mix it and it's crazy. And all of a sudden now you got 5 different people mixing the process. Yeah, you're right, actually. 5-10 years ago, you just wouldn't have seen that.